since I started working and actually earning an income and my wife started earning an income, we've been priced out of the market, you know. I'm about 10 years too late. So it sucks. It sucks. And it's sad that, you can blame whatever you want, politics, our prime minister, our mayors, or our policies, immigration, whatever excuse you want to come up with. I don't know why. Maybe it's a factor of some of those reasons or none of those, but we're in a terrible, like Toronto's in a terrible position. Canada as a whole is in a terrible position, and it really does break my heart. It really breaks my heart, and it almost makes me want to cry, to be completely honest with you. Like it, I know your situation too, and when I think about that, like it literally, I want to bring, like, it makes me want to tear up. It really does. It's it's so sad what's happening to this country, and it's sad when a couple makes about $250,000 a year and can't buy a house on the street they grew up in. That's 1,000 square feet.
So I had posted a video on my channel, link in the description. But essentially, my friend here is someone that I referenced in that video. I mentioned that I had friends that together, because they're married, made over $200,000 a year and could not buy a house or get into a housing market in Toronto, Canada. Okay, that was the scenario, and a lot of people commented on that and were shocked by it. So I thought I'd bring in the exact individual I was referencing, um,
Yep,
Darren. So
that's me. Yes.
so I figured
I
maybe,
am
yeah,
I am the 200K married man.
yeah. So
That sounds nice.
I
Yeah,
figured
but
you'd mention your situation, you know?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's over 200 grand. It's actually 240, so you undercut us by quite a bit there. I make very close to six figures, and my wife obviously makes more than me, as she takes pretty much the majority of that income, I guess. And we both have, I'd say, pretty good jobs. She does really well, and I work in a trade. We can't afford a home in Toronto, and it's sad to say that we are approved for uh, about 800,000. Which, if you have 800,000 and you want to buy a home in Toronto, good luck, because you can't. You really can't. I'm 30, my wife's 30, and I live in my mom's basement. As amazing as that sounds. I pay her rent and everything. It's obviously pretty cheap. But yeah, I still live at home, which is unfortunate. I know more people my age who live at home than who've moved out, which is pretty sad to say. I don't know if my parents' generation, they were born in the 60s, is like that. We both have very good jobs, and we just can't afford a home. And it's not like we're looking at glamorous homes. The average single family home in Toronto is $1.3 million, which, if you want to do some math here, at a minimum down payment of about 250 grand, your mortgage payment at today's interest rates are about $7,000 a month just on the mortgage. I can't afford that. We can't afford that. I don't have an extra $500,000 saved up to then get it down to where I can afford the house, because that's how much money I would have to put in. So it's kind of annoying that the real estate market has more or less ruined my life.
Yeah.
I, like, it delays everything in your life. It delayed us getting married because I would have got married sooner, but one, it's expensive, and then you get married, and the next question is kids, right? So you start thinking, like, if I wait until I can afford a home in Toronto to have kids, I might be 40 or 50. So yeah, the Toronto real estate market has more or less ruined our lives. I can only afford where I can start affording homes. If you live in Toronto, it's about Barrie, which, if you don't live in Toronto, kilometer wise, it's about 110 from where I live. So 110 kilometers north, which is probably about 65, 70 miles. If you don't know, Toronto ranks third worst in the world for traffic. So it's about a 2 hour drive on average, one way. So that sucks. So that's about where I could probably move to.
And because
Um,
of how far it is, like you would have to commute to your trade job.
yes, that is true. You have kids, you have to pay for daycare, which is not cheap. I've looked into it. It's about $2,000 a month. Um, so that's a lot. Um, yeah, I just it's so depressing, man, because like I make a good income, my wife makes a great income, and it feels like we can pretty much afford everything but a place to live. And it's not like renting is much better. We could rent. I mean, we'd be able to rent, I guess, an apartment, which would
Mm-hmm.
be less than what we have now. There's a two-bedroom for rent in our neighborhood, and it's $2,800 a month.
You're just throwing
It's
away your money. Like,
yeah, it then feels like we're definitely never gonna buy a house, right? Because then we're just paying a lot, and it's then a problem for other things, as in I have a service vehicle that I like a work vehicle that I use for my job. It's quite tall. It's 9 feet,
mm-hmm.
so it's not going to fit in their parking garage, which is six, which is a problem for condos. So I wouldn't even be able to like do my job. That's the Toronto real estate market for you, and that's my life in a nutshell. I do really well in the sense that I can buy most things I want, but not the things I actually need, which is housing,
Like the
right? I mean,
Canadian dream, right? Like that,
yeah.
you know.
And to give you another kicker, I have no debt. My
Mhm.
wife has no debt. We have no car payments. We both own cars with no car payments. They're both paid off a long time ago. And we both have excellent credit scores. Mine is slightly better than hers, thankfully. That, but it's well over 800. Okay. And the best credit score you can get is 900. And mine is pretty darn close to perfect.
Wow.
All right. Right. Yeah. I've never missed a credit card payment. Nothing. I have, so it's not like, oh, maybe you could afford more if you had good credit. I have perfect credit. All right. I'm like I'm like the poster child of what to do to be able
So,
to afford a home.
so
And
perfect
so is my
credit,
wife.
perfect
Yeah.
credit for the both of you, like essentially $240,000.
Yeah.
You have a
Before taxes.
yeah, and you have a significant
That's a
down payment, right?
yeah.
And you can only get pre-approved for 850 or 800,
Yeah, 850.
850,
Yeah.
which can get you nothing.
Literally nothing even remotely close to my neighborhood. Like not a house.
Yep.
I could buy a condo,
And we should add,
that my vehicle won't fit in. I might be able to find a townhome that has high maintenance fees, so no winning there.
and by the way, we should add that like your area is the area that I also grew up in, right?
Yes.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's not a bad area, but you're not getting like extravagant homes that are
No,
like large size homes, right? You're getting a modest home for 1 million, basically.
very modest.
Yeah.
If you want, truthfully, the house that I live in, right? Like my mom owns, right? Is 1,200 square feet. This house is worth 1.25 million. That's insane. Do you know what the number one thing people are doing? Two of the people on my street are currently building them, laneway homes,
Yeah.
which is basically in this area. There's a laneway, which is where people have their garages, right? Um, and people are removing the garages and building a home. I shit you not. This is a real thing in Toronto because of how bad the real estate market is.
Look it up.
So people are converting their garages to homes. And they're not big, they're not glamorous. I mean, some are nicer than others, but our garage space is about 18 feet wide by about 15 feet.
Yeah.
Um, Not huge. right? Not huge. So people are sometimes doing normally 2 stories, maybe about 5 to 600 square feet. Obviously, you get rid of the parking for your car and you live there. So very tiny. They're expensive to do. They're about $500,000 to build. But
which
this is
which
an
is
alternative.
which is insane. What you just said is insane.
This is an alternative that my mom has told me that if she wants, she will rake up the property and we'll create a, because we do currently have a garage, but knock that down and build an actual home that we could live in. So this is an option that we've talked about. And when we were talking about it, in my head, I went, I can't believe my life has gone to this point where I'm debating on building a garage home in my mom's backyard
The literally
for
the
half a million
backyard
dollars.
you grew up in. Like you grew up in this house. You
My
haven't
mom bought this
moved.
house before I was born. Yep. And and by the way, if anyone's wondering, she paid 133,
In what year? What year was it?
91.
1991.
Yeah,
Yep.
133. It's
Yep.
worth 1.25.
And people are, people are definitely going to be like, well, 133, sure, 1991. If you inflate that, right?
Yeah,
It's not 1 point whatever you
it's not
said.
1.25.
No way. No
No.
way.
No. There's homes for sale that are under 1,000 square feet for $1 million. Dollars.
Yep.
And they normally go pretty quick because that's a bargain. I'm pretty depressed about this, obviously. Like it's delayed my life, it's ruined my life, it's ruined our life. It's so sad, man. Sometimes I just think I wish I didn't live here. I really do. I wish I didn't grow up here and I wish my family didn't live in this city because it's so goddamn expensive. And it's not like everything else is cheap in the city. Everything is so expensive.
And
And
I was going to ask you, so what do you say to people? Because there's definitely going to be people watching that are like, hey, why don't you just move to Alberta? Why don't you just move to Saskatchewan? Why don't you just move to, I don't know, Brunswick? What do you say?
yeah, it's an option, but truthfully, I don't want to. And like I think that I've said this before because my wife was more into this idea before. Now she's not so much into the idea just because she lost her mom a few years back. She has her father here and her brothers, and she said that, and I agree with her that, family is very important to
Mm-hmm.
her,
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't want to move far away from them because in her mind and mine that you don't want to be away from your family. It's hard, right? Like I sympathize with people who've had to move away from their family because I can't even imagine how hard that would be. And she doesn't want to only see her father once a year.
Right.
And she's like, I could count the number of times I'd probably see him until he dies. And it's depressing when you think of something like that. At least to me, it was very depressing, right? And we were like, we shouldn't have to move somewhere just so we can afford a house
Right.
that we don't want to, only for a house. That is, I think that's like the number one way to probably like end up very depressed,
Yep. And by the
right?
way,
To
it's not like you're moving to Alberta and all your bills go away. You're still going to have bills. They're still going to
yeah,
be high. You still are going to have to pay property tax and all that. It will be less than Toronto, but you're still going to be paying bills and you won't see your family.
if everything was more or less the same, but the housing market was cheaper, I would have 100% bought a house by now.
Yep.
It's just the real estate market has gone up so much that I am more or less a really bad age. If I was about 10 years older and I had the 10-year ago housing market, I
Easier.
could have bought a house. But since I started working and actually earning an income and my wife started earning an income, we've been priced out of the market, you know? I'm about 10 years too late. So it sucks. It sucks. And it's sad that, you can blame whatever you want, politics, our prime minister, our mayors, or our policies, immigration, whatever excuse you want to come up with. I don't know why. Maybe it's a factor of some of those reasons or none of those, but we're in a terrible, like Toronto's in a terrible position. Canada as a whole is in a terrible position, and it really does break my heart. It really breaks my heart, and it almost makes me want to cry, to be completely honest with you. Like it, I know your situation too, and when I think about that, like it literally, I want to bring like it makes me want to tear up. It really does. It's it's so sad what's happening to this country, and it's sad when a couple makes about $250,000 a year and can't buy a house on the street they grew up in. That's 1,000 square feet.